Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. She is somebody that can help you with your career as a strategist, as a coach, can also help you find your purpose. She's also got some really major insight on the entertainment industry and literally wrote the book called The Unabashed Truth. I know there's a subtitle to that.
Yeah, it's The Unabashed Truths the entertainment industry won't tell you, and it's a guide to the business of acting.
And she is Joann, and she's with us. Welcome back. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Yeah. We've talked about career, finding your purpose and all of those things. So we're going to pivot back to the entertainment industry. We started way back. A bunch of episodes talking about that. But apparently with all the changes over the last even 20 years, it's essentially the same, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, because basically the main purpose, let's say, of an actor, and remember, it's the business side that I address, not the craft. I have a whole guidebook as the steps as to how you should go. And it really has not changed. Technology has changed it. And it even has changed it even more since COVID, but not that much more. So the basic steps of knowing who is the player, what do you need to do if you want to get into this industry? Essentially, this morphed from a class that I taught at my kids' acting school because the director of the school said, I need somebody to train these parents. Because you see, if you're the parent of a child actor, and I say it in the book, they're looking at you. They're not just looking at your child because they know that I'm going to be dealing with mommy. Just like when you're a veterinarian, if you are a regular practice, you're going to be dealing with the owner. So you have to have that kind of skill. And I've had the experience where an agent said, I do not want to work with them. And part of that, and I explain it in the book. I go through all of the steps. I mean, here it is. You can find it on my website. I go through all of the steps in order of what you should be doing. And then I give you the cast of the characters. That is not changed. You know, you're going to have a producer, you're going to have a director, you're going to have a casting director, you have an agent and a manager. I even go into when do you really need a manager? When do you need an agent? And just how you have to also be a brand. But it really did start from teaching parents the industry because it is very different when you are the parent of a child actor. You have to get them their working papers. You have to do things differently. And you were on stage also. People don't realize that. That used to be a joke between my kids and I. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it takes a certain personality, I would assume. And also, you can't just think that, well, you know what? I'm going to drop them off with this audition. I'll wait in the wings. I'll wait till they're done. No, you're directly involved in it.
Well, you're directly involved in it, but I'm going to be honest with you. You better wait in the wings. A lot of parents will sit there. I did not like it. I got my kids into it really because they wanted to. And I said to them, I am not taking you to auditions if you don't want to go. And you have to live in a city that has auditions. We did this a long time ago. New York was just coming out into the industry. Law and Order was just being mainstream. And even then, and today, if you're in New York and you've never been on Law and Order, you're not an actor. I mean, that's just, it's just, it's just a thing, so.
No, same thing with there's other shows too, like Blue Bloods. But
they're all here. And then they're also opening another studio around the corner. The Bethpage studio. I don't know if you know about the film studio that's in Bethpage.
Sure.
Okay. He's opening a new one in Port Washington. It's almost done. Yeah. I was on the news because of it, because I supported it. We're digressing. Okay.
We're talking Long Island, New York. And
I know we can't.
Yeah.
So basically I discussed, well, you have to prepare first. And part of preparing is you really need to have headshots. Kids, it's different. So what I do is I break the book out so that at the bottom you'll see the difference between being an adult actor, maybe a retiree who wants to get into the industry, someone who's going back into the industry, and child actors. Because child actors don't need a professional headshot till they start really doing stuff and until they're 6, maybe a little younger, depending on the goals. I mean, I used to just send out these little photos of my kids, until we were ready to do a headshot. And then until we were ready to do a resume. And that's also because an acting resume is different than a regular resume. So I then go into how the process works.
Would you do a separate resume depending on the gig? Would you tailor?
No.
It would just be one. Okay.
No, it's not like it's not like how it is today. If you're in, because again, since I do career assessments for people, it's not as if you say, I will take that job description and put it into my resume, because that right now bots are doing it. Bots are not doing this. What really when you're submitting and when you go on to some of the places like casting networks or Actors Access, they're really looking at your headshot. That's why your headshot is so important. You've got to pop out. You've got to even act in your headshot. So if there's, you're an actor. Now, of course, yes, we do have brands. Okay. And, my brand for a while was the waitress. So the old waitress, what can I tell you? My kids' brand were preppies. So we all do have a brand. There are some people that say, oh, well, I can do anything. Well, So no, basically the process, which is discussed here, is that the way that I tell people is if you're starting out, you really need to get to an acting school. You need to get acting classes, whether you are doing it for college or whether you're doing it on the side. And you want to make sure that acting school has connections to managers and agents, because that's who's going to technically get you the job. But initially, you can start out on the services. There's casting networks, and you put your headshot up. You put even a resume. Someone will say, oh, well, I've never acted before. I have no resume. Well, did you do work at school in the school play? Do you do community stuff? So that counts. So you can put that there. And then your training is very important. They look at that. So your resume has to be set in a certain way. Just like with kids, you do not put their age on it. You do not put their telephone number on it. Now, again, though that was back in the day when we didn't have the internet as much. So you didn't want their headshot to be thrown on the floor and somebody taking their telephone. And as you see, a cat crosses the screen.
Wait a minute. Is that a union cat? I want to make sure.
Yeah, I know.
Crossing a line here. So question, is there some benefit or great benefit if you become an extra? Let's say I just want to get there. I'm going to be just on set. I don't have a speaking role. Yeah, they're going to pay me just minimum, whatever, but at least I'm close to it.
That's one of my chapters, background work. Okay, Now my kids never did it, but I do it profusely, or I did do it before COVID. And I discussed that also. And it's there are some people, I would have people on the set who would say, oh, I don't want the camera on me too much because then they'll see I'm doing background. You know what? Doesn't matter. It really doesn't. You need to have experience on a set. Being on a set is not like working in an office. It's not, there's a whole host of things going on that have to be done. You have to be quiet. Most of it is sitting around. So background work is a good way to see if you like it. That leads me into, I have a questionnaire for both the parents and for an actor. And depending on what you answer, because again, this is a business. This is not just your craft. Are you going to be available for auditions? Do you have the ability to be available, like your kids, because you've got to have somebody on the drop of a dime. Now let's talk about how that's changed a little bit because of COVID. We will go into that. The first audition these days now are done by a self-tape. Now, notice they call it self-tape. Excuse me, this is what I'm using. Is that a tape? So you have to, that's really the first, because it costs so much money unless they are, let's say, Beth Melsky Casting, who have their own offices, who have their own equipment. But the first one is through that through self-tape, because it used to be you'd go on your first audition.
You know, Matt, you're bringing back some memories. I have a marketing company, and we did a commercial 2 years ago, and we've actually since updated it and brought her back in. But just what you said, I found I think it was a model search site somewhere in our area, because we're close to each other. Like 45 minutes. But it was the personal video is where the decision was made to use this actress. And we were literally looking for a woman who was around 70, looked healthy, looked good, presented herself well. And I'm not even kidding. It was just her. Hi, my name is, and there was a couple of clips of things that she may have done, pictures and things like that. But that's where the decision was made. Just what you're saying.
Yep. And basically that started even with my kids. I mean, my kids got 2012 because we did, oh my goodness, a video audition. I mean, we didn't have phones then. You had to have and we didn't even have the cameras yet that had videos in them. So we would actually go to our manager. But it's what's called an EPK. You should have an electronic press kit.
Yeah. Did you say that your kids are twins?
Identical. Yes, you're a twin.
Yes, I have a twin sister.
Yep.
So, did you ever encounter a situation, Joann, where you went to a casting call and only one of them got cast?
Of course.
Yeah.
That was my first question when I decided to do this. And then what would happen? You know what we were finding? And then my manager, she worked with me on this. She's a very good child manager here in New York. And it was so funny because she'd give them both headshots and they look exactly alike. So who would they always call in? Alex. And one time I would bring them both together because I had no choice. So we'd be sitting there and the casting director said, wait a minute, he's a twin? Well, let him audition too. And that was my main question to my kids. I said to them, what happens if one of you get it and the other one doesn't? Oh, Ma, that's cool. We'll share the money. And
did it work?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
It absolutely worked.
You never know. The competition depends on their personalities, but if they were good with that.
Well, that's really what it also comes down to again, which then I can even just go into finding your purpose. You have to know about yourself. You have to, we're not learning about ourselves enough. So that was one of the major questions with my kids. And then I used to say, I'm not dragging you to auditions. And then, they had a memory like you would not believe. So they wouldn't be practicing. And I would say, what's going on? And they would memorize the lines on the train ride into Manhattan.
Oh my gosh, I wish.
Yeah, right. I wish too.
I can't remember. I play songs on the radio as part of my career since I was a kid. I can't remember song lyrics. It's almost a joke.
No. If I had memorized, I know all that. Listen, I can sing you American Pie right now. And the other day when I was doing some whatever, they played a music station from the 60s and I'm singing all the songs they're telling me to shut up.
Wow.
If I can memorize. So they got that, which is a good thing, but let's go into parents. Okay.
Sure.
And if you have a child, because what happened with us, and this is exactly the key, my kids used to sit and read. And in that day and age, people still didn't read. Okay. They still had the little Game Boy. I mean, they didn't have phones.
Mm-hmm.
And one time, our manager, this is a different manager, my kids went on an audition and my babysitter took them because we lived in Manhattan and I worked. She calls me up at the end of the day, some assistant, and says, the casting director said that your kids, you and your husband had a fight at the audition. Now, that upset me. My husband wasn't there. My babysitter was. Please don't confuse my children. That's very important. You see, what people don't realize is you go on that audition and you do your best. You may not get it, but if you go in there, that casting director is going to remember you. I mean, it happened with my kids. But I literally said, please call that casting director. They are confusing me.
Wow.
With somebody else. Very important.
That's disturbing.
Well, again, it's how you behave.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not this is all back to behavior. And that's why in the book, I have a questionnaire, especially for the parents. Does your child listen to you? Do they talk back to you? Because that's also part of it. Yes, maybe you once in a while they won't care, but trust me, they care. I mean, even in the book, I wrote that we basically had a role, we had 2012 and we had to film in LA. You have to have a set tutor. That's the other thing you have to look at. I write about it all in the book to give you the ideas of what you need. And basically what ended up happening is this set tutor said to me, she goes, I looked at the part that your kids had. And I wasn't going to take this because they were brats, because usually as a child, oops, I'm telling a real secret, that's their personality type if they're doing well in the movie. And she goes, your children are the most polite kids I ever met. So she goes, and I was not going to take the job. So it's very interesting, all of the little dynamics, and it all has to do with how we behave. It really...
Yeah. And also, those things actually are memorable. And what you said before, it's almost loosely here, but it is part of the brand. Like if your kids are, or kid, and you're putting them out there, their personality is part of their brand. And even we're talking before, how do you stand out? It could be even your son's haircut, could be a certain look. And it's like, oh, that's the kid with the blank hair.
That's right.
Made a mark. Doesn't mean the hair can't change for the role, but that's how he was remembered.
That's right.
And
you have to do what they say. That just triggered me into my memory of how my kids were going to scuba diving camp, and they had this long, in the movie, they have long, curly hair. And I got a phone call, and I was going to cut all their hair off because they're going scuba diving. Could you imagine having long, curly hair and you're a teenager and you don't even take care of it anyway? And he was like, do not cut their hair. I'm like, oh no.
So now they were scuba diving in their personal life?
In their personal life.
Okay. And you were going to cut their hair just to make it easier, sure.
Yeah.
But that's their brand?
Yep, that was their brand for the movie.
Wow. And can I ask what movie that was? I know you shared some of them.
2012.
That was 2012. Okay.
2012.
Wow. Okay. Was that shot mostly in the New York area or not?
No, not at all. It was in Vancouver and LA.
Wow.
I left my hubby for 4 months. Yeah.
Whew. How would you rate that experience? The whole thing?
Oh, the whole thing was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Excuse that, please. Yeah, the whole thing was the most wonderful experience anyone could ever have. We were very blessed, and they look at it that way.
Now, as the parents of child actors, and good gig, right? If you could go back and do something a little bit differently for that project, what do you think it would be? Is there anything that pops in your head?
Well, the only thing that pops in my head, unfortunately, my life is always is circumstantial. I would have taken the kids because New York was not as good as it is today. And after that, I was planning on taking them to LA. But 2 days before we left my husband, we lost our house to a fire.
Okay. I remember.
We left him homeless. We were technically homeless. And
wow.
So that would have been the plan. But you want to know something? being that I still am in the industry and I know managers and child actors, and I know what's happened to some of these child actors, in a way, it's a blessing because, again, as in sports, as in anything, the parents live through their children and make their children do things that they don't really want to do. So it's.
But overall, you would say it was a great experience.
Oh, phenomenal. And good for them. It taught them that it gave them skills. See, acting to me should really be for children a required course, especially now. Because again, back to your purpose, back to the self-directed search. Creativity is one of the things that we need for the world we're in today. And being artistic is very important. And we need that. And we need to teach that to kids. We need to teach kids how to communicate. And we're not. I mean, I think it should be part of the core curriculum, but who am
I? I completely, Joann, agree with you. That is, even just acting is self-expression, confidence, adhering to different situations. Let's face it, you go for a job interview, let's be honest, you're kind of acting. You're being you, but there's a little twist on you. Or you go to a party. You are, in a sense, if you walk into that party, you really don't know anybody. You're being you, but there is probably about 10% of
acting. Well, you got it. I mean, it hits us everywhere. And unfortunately, because we are glued to these, we're not doing it. We're doing it even worse. I mean, being an old technology person, the coders were the ones that were in the room with all the papers and not communicating. And it's kind of a little bit worse. So even though I think COVID helped us by doing this, because we still need that whole communication part. And kids need it. And so do adults. I mean, take an acting class at adult ed, just because you know what else? It teaches you all that communication skills. It also teaches you how to listen. Because if you do very good improv games, which I teach a class too, you have to listen to what the other person before you has said, or maybe the person 3 steps ahead of you. So it teaches you how to listen.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And I wish I did more of that in school. Even how to react in a situation. Let's say in an improv class, you're listening to something somebody says, and you may have half heard it, or maybe you did hear it. Not really sure how to react to it. Well, that could be a normal situation.
Well, thank you. And that's why improv skills are very, very important. We play a game. And what the game is a situation is written on one piece of paper, a little tiny piece of paper. Everybody puts it in a bag, any kind of situation. Let's even, whatever life situation it is. That's why I think it's so important. And you pick it. One person picks it. It's only one person that knows what is going on. And the other person doesn't. And then you flip back and forth, meaning then you do another round. Because this way, one person knows, let's say the situation was, oh, you're having trouble with your siblings, your parents need care and nobody's helping. You're the only one taking care of it. You now have to have a talk with your sibling. I mean, these are really real life situations that we really need to teach adults, children.
See, my situation would be deeper than that. You're meeting your girlfriend's parents for the first time and you're dealing with the worst IBS you've ever had in your life.
What do you do?
What do you do? I just want to watch that. How would that go down? But yeah, interesting thoughts here. Now, your book has a lot of insight for people looking at the entertainment industry. Would we find that on your website? Is that the place to go?
And you'd find it on Amazon.
How about you coaching a parent of kids that want to be actors? Is that something you do as well?
Yeah. I mean, I've directed. I've told many people. One was my insurance agent. So yes, I do help parents kind of navigate the system and what they should be doing, and also the questionnaire is really very important because I do ask questions that if you can't do that, if you can't or have somebody else pick up and go to an audition, even as a child, you can't do this. Because once you stop It's like 3 strikes, you're out.
Mm. What I like about what you do here is your title is the best. It says what it is.
Yep.
Somebody could say, acting is wonderful, and it's a great experience for your children to enrich their learning and their personality. Yes, it is, but you get right to the point. Okay, here's the deal. This is what you got to know. This is the truth. This is the behind the scenes. This is what you need to anticipate when going. It's the real deal.
It is the real deal.
That's what we need.
It is, but people don't want to hear the truth, no matter where we go.
Yeah.
People, we really don't want to hear the truth to help us, because what it is it's pain. And painfulness to us is totally negative. And then I'm also reading another book, and I forgot the actor's name. He did a documentary on it, and it's Phil Stutz. And he really talks about, you've got to go through that pain, and then that helps move you.
Sure.
And, you've got to know it. Just like one of the questions are, how does your kid deal with rejection? And my kids were great. My kids were like, okay, I'm done. Only once did one ever say, I wish I did that take again. And then I said, well, now you can ask the casting director.
Okay. Yeah. And these things as a parent, unless you have the experience or you haven't read the book and get the inside, you wouldn't know that.
No, you wouldn't know a lot. And so that's why I decided to write it, to sort of, it was a class. And then I sort of morphed it into a book, and then put in background work. What do you want to do if you want to just do background work? Because background work is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's great as a retirement gig, especially if you live around here.
Yeah.
In the New York metro area.
Oh, or somewhere where, let's say you're
in LA, Vancouver, Atlanta,
but
even Chicago.
I was just going to say Chicago. Things are being shot all the time, be it commercials, it could be an industrial type video where they need people, and all right, so it doesn't pay a ton, but it's fun.
But it's fun. It is so much fun. I mean, that is the only thing I have to really say about it. It's a lot of fun, and you meet interesting people. I mean, I met retired doctors. I met retired financial advisors.
Sure.
So it is a lot of fun.
Your website, share it with everybody, please.
Okay, here we go. JoannPerahia.com.
Got it. And that's the place for the book, or if somebody's looking for any kind of career consultation, direction, you do it all there. Joann, always great talking with you. Always learn.
Oh, same here. And thank you for having me. Your pleasure.
Good to have you on here. And got to learn more about that Port Washington studio. I haven't heard that one.
Yes.
Interesting.
And you should see it. It's so cute.
Wow.
But I'm actually going to be talking to the mayor, or talk to him.
We'll talk. We'll talk.
I know. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Joann. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.